Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Liz, and in today's video, I'm sharing with you my top 10 thrifted furniture flips. I love going to the thrift stores, finding pieces that are amazing and transforming them for my house. So the first bench I'm going to be working on, I found really inexpensively at a thrift store and purchased it on a half price day. I'm going to tape off the seat because I don't want to paint that. And next I'm going to be using some Waverly white chalk paint, and I'm going to be painting the top and side of my bench. You can always use a variety of paints. The reason I like chalk paint is because I like my pieces to be distressed and really farmhouse. Chalk paint's also great because it doesn't require any prep work. So for most of my pieces, I will just clean them and let them dry completely, but you don't have to sand or do anything else really to your piece. So that is awesome. With this piece, I'm gonna do 2 coats of chalk paint. Then I'm going to take some sandpaper, and in the areas where you would naturally see wear, I'm going to pull off the excess paint. The distressing helps to really pull back the detail of the piece that you're working on so you can see the edges of the slats or the curve in the edge of the bench. After you're done sanding, you want to wipe it down with a rag. I'm going to then remove the tape that I put on my piece. To seal it, I'm going to put on clear wax, and I like to use the Annie Sloan clear wax. I will take a paper towel and I'll just wipe the clear wax on, and as I'm wiping it, I pull off any excess. You don't want a lot of wax sitting on your piece, just a little bit, and this is just going to seal the piece. One of the biggest transformations I've done in my house is redoing my small bathroom. If you guys remember back when we moved into our house, it had this fall leaf wallpaper. It was so crazy, and it's the smallest bathroom. It really only has like the toilet area, and then it also has, you know, the little vanity. So I did the work. I removed all the wallpaper, which, you know, wasn't easy to do. And I came back in and I painted everything with just a fresh coat of white. I found this awesome vanity on Facebook Marketplace. I want to say I spent around $50 for it, but my husband and I took off the top piece and we bought a sink at Lowe's. We created a template to cut a hole in the top of the vanity. And so we started by drilling holes into the top with the drill, and then we're going to come back in using the skill saw and cut out that whole area. Next, I sanded it down really well. I removed all of the finish on the top because I wanted to stain that. With the base portion, I painted it with this letterpress gray color by DIY, and I painted, I think it was around 2 or 3 coats on the entire piece. I'm showing you the back side because we cut out the back of the dresser because we wanted to make sure we had room for all the piping. I bought a Rust-Oleum stain that I'm going to be putting on the top. I ended up only using 1 coat of this, and with stain I like to use a foam brush to apply it to the top. So I'm just going to lightly put it on, and then I'll take my rag and pull off any excess. You know, you don't want to let the stain sit on there very long because when you pull off the excess, that's when you can see that wood grain coming through and it gives it that nice look. I'm going to be painting the piece with 2 or 3 coats of the letterpress gray color. Now, the best thing about this vanity was all of the detail. So to make the detail stand out, I'm starting by wet distressing it. I'm pulling off paint on the scroll area and just really making that wood underneath pop and stand out. I'm also going to do it on any crease area on my piece, in my doors, and on the sides, and just where it gives it that natural worn look. Now for the top, you really want to seal it well. This was my first time using the General Finishes water-based sealer. I really like it, and I've bought another thing of it and have used it on several projects. One of the things I really like about the sealer is it doesn't have a shine to it. So if you like the look of the natural wood, you want to get a water-based flat sealer, and you're not going to get that shine, but you'll get the protection you need. This piece is still in my bathroom and I love it so much. I added back the hardware that was on it previously, and it has just a great patina to it, so I didn't do anything to it. Here's a look at my vanity in our half bath. I love finding benches at the thrift store. 9 times out of 10, if I see a good one, I'm going to pick it up. I found this one and I really love the color of the top of it, so I didn't want to do anything to mess that up. So I'm keeping the top completely the way it is. For the base, I'm going to be using the color Silver Lining by Waverly. Silver Lining is kind of a light gray color, so it kind of comes off as white as well. And I'm going to be painting it with 2 coats of the Silver Lining. The brush that I'm using is a chalk painting brush by Annie Sloan. It's just more of a thicker brush. I've seen several of these brushes at different stores, so you really can find them anywhere. I'll try to link below in the description box all of the tools that I'm using in case you're interested in finding anything similar to these tools. Now to distress this piece, I'm going to be using a technique called wet distressing, where you take a wet rag, you wring it out, and then you're simply going to go over your piece and pull the paint off. You could see on the side of my piece, I wanted a lot of paint to be pulled off. So just keep going until you get the desired look you're going for. I'm going to also be using a dark wax by Annie Sloan, and dark wax just helps to give you a little bit of distressing or dark color. I like to use it on the edges of my piece. So I'm taking a rag and I'm just going to wipe that around the edging of my piece. As you can see, it just kind of brings out the dark detail. I'm also going to put it on the top bench part. And then after I use the dark wax, I'll just come over with a coat of the clear wax. And here's a look at how this adorable bench turned out. This bench has been sitting in my dining room for at least 1.5 years now. My oldest daughter has this alcove cut out in her room, and she asked for a makeup area / desk area in there. And I thought it was a really great idea. So of course I went to the Restore. The countertop I found was only $5 because everything there is so inexpensive. We measured exactly how long it needed to be, and my husband cut it down to size. Next, I used some primer on it to prime the piece, and then I did 2 coats of the room color that I was using, which is Simply White by Benjamin Moore. That's the color in her room, and that's the color I used on the counter. I've also been really liking a gripper primer lately, and I will link that down in the description box for you. It's been really great. Now on the wall behind this, I wanted this area to stand out, so I bought a floral wallpaper that is peel and stick off of Amazon. And if you guys watched any of my RV videos, it was kind of a struggle for me to put up this wallpaper. But for some reason, it was so much easier in her room. My husband's great about helping me cut everything out. And if you cut it before you put it on the wall, it just makes it a little bit easier. This pattern was kind of difficult to line up because it was hard to kind of see where the floral pattern was, but in the end we got it figured out and we got the wallpaper up. So I'm always for putting up wallpaper if it's like a small area. I don't know if I could do a whole wall. That may be a little too much for me. To install the desk, my husband put some 1x4 boards underneath the desk, and then we laid the desk on top and screwed it in place. Another feature we added was a little hole cut out in the back, so down the road, if she has like cords for a laptop, we can add those in as well. I also, at the Restore, picked up a medicine cabinet for only $10, and I thought that would be really cool as her mirror, plus give her some storage options. Since it was a flat desk, there really wasn't a lot of storage. So I painted it the same way that I did the desktop. I primed it and I did 2 coats of the Benjamin Moore Simply White. We also added a light above the medicine cabinet because there was no light in this area of the room. And then I accessorized it with this adorable bow chair that I found on Amazon. I'll try to link it below. And I just love the way this little nook area turned out. So sometimes I will purchase things on Facebook Marketplace, and I found this table with a glass top. I think I purchased it for $20. And honestly, when I bought it at the time, I thought I was going to do something totally different with it. But I thought when I was looking at it that it really looked like a cool clock. So that's what I'm gonna make with it. So we started by removing all the screws because I just wanted the top base. I didn't want that bottom section. We cut off the back portion as well. I then painted it with 2 coats of Waverly white chalk paint. I pulled off some of the paint by just sanding it with a sanding block. I bought this stencil on Amazon, you guys, and it fit this clock perfectly. I feel like I really lucked out with this one. So I'm just going to tape it in place at the top. I'm gonna pull off the underside of the paper so that I can put it down in place. So I'm gonna try to make the stencil as even as possible when I place it down, and then I'll just rub it in place, and then I'll pull off that top portion. I also purchased a clock kit, and I'm going to drill a hole into the center of the clock so that I can put the clock in the very middle. You'll just follow the instructions for whatever clock kit you have in order to put your clock hands in place. And here's how this looks in my front room. I still have the clock up today, and I love how this project turned out. One of the items in my home that I get a lot of questions about are the bar stools that are in our kitchen. I picked them up for $5 at the Restore, and I'm painting them with 2 coats of Waverly white chalk paint. Now, bar stools do take a while because you kind of have to go on all the spindles, and they do take longer than you think they're going to be, but in the end, I think it's worth it. I really wanted this to have a super distressed finish, so I'm taking it outside for the sander. Anytime I want things to be super distressed, I pull out the sander. And I'm just going to sand the top of them and all of the different spindles. I'm also going to be adding in Dark Wax by Annie Sloan. This is just going to give me a little bit more of a dark appearance with the wood that's natural after I was done sanding. And anytime I use dark wax, I try to just keep it to the edges of the piece that I'm working on. Next, I added in a stencil. This is from my friends at Stencil Revolution. I will link this stencil down in the description box as well. And so I decided, this actually came as one stencil, but I decided to break it up and put one of the little farm animals on each of the stools. And I'm going to be using the color Moss by Waverly to fill it in. Now, we've had these stools for about 1.5 years and they still look great. One of the great things about having farmhouse and distressing is it's really hard to kind of mess up a paint job because it's already messed up. So that's one of my favorite things about farmhouse and distressing and having kids in your house. Now I will suggest whenever you put your stencil down, make sure you tape it down. That's just gonna help hold it in place and it's gonna make it look a lot more professional. Now I am going to be sanding each one of these so that it fits in a little bit more with the stool. I didn't want it to look perfect on the stencil, otherwise it would kind of look weird on this particular stool. Now on the top, I am going to cover them with a coat of clear wax because these do get a lot of use. You definitely, with high traffic or high used items, want to give it a coat of clear wax. And here's a look at how these adorable farmhouse stools turned out. I don't know about you, but I see ladders often when I'm at the thrift store, and I thought, you know what, this would be a cool thing to decorate with. So I picked up a ladder for $5, and I'm gonna start by just taping off the stools. One of the cool things about this ladder, weathered look that it has, I didn't want to get rid of that weathered look because that adds so much character to this piece. I'm gonna add in painter's tape so that I can just concentrate on painting the edges of my ladder. I'm going to be using this fern color by Waverly, and I don't use this color often, but I have to say it's a really nice green if you want like a really pretty kind of Kelly green color. I'm going to be using my foam brush, and as you can see when I'm painting this on, I'm not fully covering it. This is kind of one of my cheating techniques. Whenever I want to have like a really distressed finish, I will just do not even a full coat and make it look distressed. This is an easier way than putting on a full coat and having to pull off all the paint. So this is kind of like the little cheating technique for making it look a little washed or distressed. And then I'm just going to pull off the painter's tape. Now I really wanted to show you guys how I dressed this up and used it as kind of an end table over by my chair. I think the main thing you want to focus on is just sticking with a really neutral color palette because I'm going to have decor on each of the tiers. So I'm going to start with a pot, and then I'm going to be using these white candle stands. I buy this greenery in a big boxwood style garland at Hobby Lobby, and I just cut it off and use it. I'm also going to place some books that don't have covers on them, and then just some neutral colored decor. I'm also going to be putting a little bit more greenery at the bottom and a matching set to that candle holder from the top. That's just going to kind of tie that whole look together. And here's a final look at how the ladder turned out. I found this table for only $3 at a garage sale. And then I also picked up one of these drawers. They sell them at the Restore for $1. So I wanted to create a little nightstand table. We cut a board that we could fit on the back side of the drawer, and then we're going to wood glue that in place. Next, we're going to remove the stand from the table because the stand is what we're going to be using for this project. We're going to place the stand in the center, and then we're just going to drill holes and screw the base to the drawer. Next, I'm going to paint the entire piece with the color Crystal by Waverly. Crystal's kind of like a light blue color. Most pieces that you're painting require 2 coats whenever you're chalk painting. I usually don't have to use 3 coats, but 1 is usually not enough. And then I'm just going to be using some sandpaper to distress. I wonder if there's a project that I don't distress. I'm sure there's got to be one out there. And then what I'm going to do with the base portion is just add in some marble contact paper. I grabbed this off of Amazon. I will link to it below. And I'm just going to cut off a piece that's about the size that I need. And then I'm just going to use my really scientific measuring and just kind of press it down in the corner to see how far I need to cut it. So once I get that line, I'm going to fold it because you have those lines on the back. So I usually kind of gauge things off of that. And then I usually like to put it back in. If I need to cut it a little bit more, I will. This is just easier for me than measuring. You could always measure it and do it completely different. Next, whenever you're putting the paper down, you want to stick it in one side and get the one side down before you start to put the rest of it down, making sure that you pull up any bubbles. I'm going to add back in the drawer handle, but painted black. This little nightstand table is still in my bedroom today in this exact same spot. I really love how it looks. You guys know that I love IKEA hacks. Well, I needed a bench to work with my kitchen table. So I bought this one at IKEA and put it all together. But I wanted to dress up the top of it because I really like kitchen table chairs that are comfortable. So I wanted to create a nice seat for this. So I bought a 2-inch piece of foam. I'm going to trace around the foam and then I'm going to cut it with an electric knife. If you don't have an electric knife, you can always use scissors. I use scissors sometime too, but I had this on hand and thought I would try it out. And as you can see, I'm going back in with scissors. The electric knife just kind of helps get a little bit of a cleaner cut whenever you're cutting foam. Now, I always buy fabric when I can get a good deal on it, and Joann's had their outdoor fabric on sale at the time. I'm going to cut off a piece that will fit around my foam. I'm also going to be placing the top of my bench on there. And then I'm going to wrap the fabric up around. I'm going to be using my electric staple gun by Surebonder, and I will try to link this below too if I can find it. And I'm just going to staple it in place. You don't want to pull too hard whenever you're placing fabric around a cushion like this, but you do want to make sure that you're pulling it so that you don't have any like excess fabric on the top. Keep kind of pulling your piece up and looking at it as you're doing this to give yourself a guide of how it looks on the front side. And then I'm just going to trim off any excess fabric, and then I'll screw my bench bottom in place. I think this bench really helps to finish off my table, and my girls love sitting on it. One of the things that I find all the time at the thrift store are old chairs, and I love painting them and giving them new life. I'm going to be painting this particular chair with the color Duck Egg by Annie Sloan. This is currently my favorite blue color that I like to use, and I've used it on several projects. I've painted a dresser with it. Honestly, there's a lot of things I've painted with this color. But I like to start on the underside painting the spindles, and then I'll flip the piece over and do the other side. Now I will give this 2 coats of paint as well. I'm going to wet distress this piece by just taking a damp rag and pulling off excess paint. I love when the piece underneath is a dark wood because it really shows through and you can just really see that detail pop out. I wanted this chair to stand out, so I'm going to be using a stencil that I picked up at Walmart, and I'm going to be using this stencil on the seat of my chair. So to start, I'm going to place the stencil down, and I'm going to put it kind of off center. I'll be using a foam brush and Waverly white chalk paint to paint the stencil. I'm just going to move the stencil to a few other areas and just repeat those steps of putting it on the chair. To finish off the chair, I'll just put a coat of clear wax on the top of it. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of my favorite pieces that I've recreated. If you're new here, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our DIYs. If you missed our last video, I'll link it here for you, and I'll talk to you guys in our next one. Bye.